I've listed every RTX 5070 Ti that we're going to go through in this video in this spreadsheet right here. You can find a link to it down in the video description. Jump in there, we got retailer links, but more importantly, we've got like the boost clock, what percent overclock it is, how many DisplayPort HDMI, what the power connector are, and all the physical details, including cooling, including whether or not it's going to fit in small form factor cases. We'll talk more about that in just a second. And we've got links also to the product pages and various notes in there as well. Now, we are only going to go through, because there's so many 5070 Ti's, we're only going to go through board partners that sell in the US. So that's ASUS, that is Gigabyte, that's MSI, PNY, and Zotac. And let me know down in the comments if you want. I can spend some time later on filling in like Galax and Inno and those other brands that don't sell in the US that I'm not as familiar with. Maybe spend some time filling that into the spreadsheet, but for right now, it's all right here. You can check it out. One of the things people always want to know is how fast is this card going to run compared to all the other ones out there? Know that even though a lot of the cards do run at the stock spec, by the way, there is no NVIDIA Founders Edition for this one. They're all aftermarket cards. That's 2452 megahertz is the stock specification, and all of them are going to run at a total board power of 300 watts, even the overclock versions. Now, of course, you can manually overclock any of these GPUs, either using like the NVIDIA app or something like MSI Afterburner, but a lot of people don't want to do that. They just want to get it out of the box and have it run. There's basically three overclocks, as I can see looking at all the cards. One is a mild overclock. It's anywhere from like 1 to about 2, maybe 3%. That runs about 2,500 megahertz out there. There's a more medium overclock out there. That's about 4%. That runs at about 25, 42 or higher. And then there is a max OC, and those are cards that I think run at 2,600-ish or higher. It's about a 7% increase. Now, if you want the max overclocked one out there, it's the Aorus Master. It runs a little over 9%. And we will go through the clocks for all the cards. For you small form factor enthusiasts out there, know that NVIDIA has introduced this small form factor ready certification for its cards. It just means that the card is 304 millimeters or less in length. It's only 2.5 slots or 50 millimeters or less in width, and 151 millimeters or less in terms of its height. And that height does include enough turn for the cable as well. I've listed all the cards that meet these certifications in the spreadsheet. Starting with ASUS, just going alphabetical here, they have 3 cards in their lineup: the Prime, the TUF, and then they got the ROG Strix. And each of those cards has a stock card, and then they have an OC card. So if you want the OC one, get the OC. One thing I will mention is that at least is listed in their specs on their website, even the stock cards have a mild overclock to them. They list them as running at a boost clock of 2,482 megahertz. That would be a 1% overclock over the stock settings, which is 2,452 megahertz. So I'm not really sure if that's just a mistake or if they've just slightly overclocked all the cards out of the gate. The other thing that's specific to ASUS out there is that they are the ones out of all the card suppliers for the US who are using the phase-changing thermal material on the GPU die. Some people absolutely love this. It's PTM 7950. It basically changes on top of the GPU die. Rather than using traditional thermal paste, they're using this thermal pad on it. They say it fills in better and that you get reduced temperatures. And we've seen this not just with GPU dies, but also with CPUs and other kinds of applications as well. All right, jumping into the RTX 5070 Ti Prime and the Prime OC. Now, the Prime is going to be a stock settings card, and the Prime OC is going to have about 3% overclock, 2,527 megahertz out there. Now, these cards are intended to be MSRP-ish. You can take that what you will. Obviously, you'll have to pay, fair market value for them, which right now is above MSRP. But these cards are intended to sell kind of at the lower price points for RTX 5070 Ti. So as time goes on with additional supply, hopefully we'll see these at lower values. Pretty much no muss, no fuss. It's kind of what you see is what you get. There's no RGB on them whatsoever. You just basically get the kind of blocky styling here on these cards. I do like this blocky styling quite a bit. I said that about their B850 motherboards, the tough ones, because they looked really, really nice. They got that nice Prime logo here, but it's all black. So for those of you looking for something a little bit more understated, this is a nice one to get. So it's got the ASUS logo on top and then the GeForce RTX, both in white. There's no RGB again on these cards whatsoever. In terms of the rear backplate, it's pretty standard rear backplate. This is not plastic though, so 2 thumbs up there. We don't like plastic backplates. They basically act as insulators. We want it to at least have some air or some kind of heat connectivity to it. In terms of the outputs, we've got 3 DisplayPort 2.1B. We've got 1 HDMI 2.1 as well. The card itself, in terms of its overall dimensions, is actually pretty tight. This is one of the cards that is small form factor rated or certified, if you will, by NVIDIA. 304 millimeters in length and 2.5 slots in width. If you want to know how wide a slot is, it's 20 millimeters. You can just take the card width divided by 20 millimeters, and that is a standard ATX slot out there for GPUs. The connector is right here on the top. It has a dual BIOS mode. Overall, pretty nice card if you're looking for something more small form factor or more basic. Jumping over the ASUS TUF Gaming RTX 5070 Ti, there's 3 versions. There's an overclocked version, a stock version, and then there is a white overclocked version as well. Physical characteristics of the cards are all the same. We'll go through those in just a moment. But let's go through the clocks. Pretty aggressive overclocks on these, between kind of medium and max OC. So about 6% overclock, 2610 megahertz. Then the other differences on these, you're gonna get more display outputs on them. I will say though, you only can still use up to 4 displays simultaneously, but they're gonna give you an additional HDMI 2.1 port on it, in addition to the HDMI 2.1 port that's there, and the 3 DisplayPort 2.1B on them. Other differences on these, again, they're gonna use the PTM 7950 thermal material. In terms of RGB on this card, there is some RGB on this card. However, it's pretty understated. It's just on the top of the card, and it's just the little logo here along with these, I think that's what, 5 vertical lines. That's basically it, but those are ARGB right there. The card itself looks pretty awesome. I think when I talked about the 9070 XT version of this, I said this is one of my more favorite looking cards out there. So 2 thumbs up there. The back plate on it, it looks beveled, but I believe this is just kind of a paint on it. It's a paint job. It's not actually beveled like that, because if you look at the side of the card, it is pretty flat. Let's talk about the physical characteristics, because this is not a small card. It's not the biggest card out there, but it's also not a small card. So 329 millimeters in length for the card. And then we're dealing with 3.125 slots in width. So this is not a small form factor card at all. This is also a card that you typically do not find for MSRP. In fact, it tends to be one of the higher priced versions out there just because it's so desirable. I think ASUS really kills it with the look on these cards. And then in terms of the white card, it's basically exact same card, except you guessed it, it's white, and it does have that same ARGB on the top right here with the logo, and it does still have those steel elements as well. Let's move over to the ROG Strix RTX 5070 Ti and the OC version as well. Now, even the non-OC version, both of these cards, very, very premium cards, obviously very premium cards, and they're typically going to command quite a hefty price premium for them. The non-OC version still has that 1% overclock at 2482 megahertz, but the OC version, this is one of the max OC versions out there, running at 2625 megahertz. It's roughly 7% overclock over the stock. So it's not the fastest out there out of the box, but it is one of the fastest cards out there. Let's talk about the rest of the card. In terms of the looks, obviously it's a ROG Strix card. You're gonna get a ton of RGB on it. You're gonna get RGB on the fans themselves. You're gonna get RGB on the front shroud of the card. And then it's got like a light bar on top as well. The rest of the card looks really nice, but let's move over to the display outputs. Just like with the TUF, you're gonna get an additional HDMI 2.1 over the standard HDMI 2.1 and 3 DisplayPort 2.1B on them. Typical 12 volt high power connector on it. You can see it right here, slightly recessed into the card, which is nice. Then you don't have to worry about it coming too close to the case as you bend the cable. It not only uses the PTM 7950 thermal interface, it also uses a vapor chamber for cooling. So this one, probably some of the max cooling out there on these cards. This card is, of course, the big one. This is 332 millimeters in length and 3.2 slots in total width. Again, if you're looking for a real showpiece card, this is typically the one that you're gonna pick up. And if you want a showpiece card that's also super fast, this is a great one to get. Let's jump to the Gigabyte RTX 5070 Ti's. There's one thing I want to note about the Gigabyte cards here. That is they have an LED power indicator. Yes, these are awesome. They're not the only ones with this, by the way, but basically whenever there's normal power flowing to your GPU on that 12 volt high power connector, you're gonna get a little white LED. If it flashes, that means there's issues with the power delivery and you should fix it basically. And if there's no white LED, it means it's not fully connected. So I absolutely love this. I think every RTX card going forward, if they're going to continue to use the 12-volt high power cable, should have an indicator like this. So 2 thumbs up there. Let's jump in the Aorus RTX 5070 Ti Master. This is not only the biggest GPU out there in terms of its length and width, it's also the fastest, and it's got some incredibly cool features to it as well. This is the kind of card, if you want a showpiece card, this is really should be on the top of your list to consider out there, and we'll go through why. Let's start off with the absolute screaming clocks on this thing. It is it's actually a little bit more than 9% overclock. 2670 megahertz. In terms of its overall kind of look and feel of the card, it's got a lot of unique features. Not only does it have the RGB ring lights here, that's the RGB halo lights on them. They look like this. It has an LCD screen on it where you can put your temperature, you can put your GPU usage, you can have a fun little character, you can play video on it. It's your typical LCD screen on it. This is really a super customizable card, and it has a ton of RGB. Not only do you have the RGB on the front, you've got the RGB logo on it, RGB on the rear part of the shroud as well. So a lot of customizable RGB on it. The other thing I love about this is the 12-volt high power connector is recessed pretty deeply into the card. So you don't really have to worry as much about bending it that far out of the card like you do with a lot of GPUs where the cable might actually hit the glass panel or your side panel. Because it's recessed a little deeper in there, you have more room to be able to go until you have to bend it. In terms of rear outputs, this card, very similar to the other cards out there. It's got 3 DisplayPort 2.1B, 1 HDMI on it. In terms of its overall size, it is a beast, an absolute beast. And then we'll talk about the cooling for it too, which is pretty impressive. Now, it's got 360 millimeters in length, 3.75 slots in width. So this is the biggest RTX 5070 Ti of any of the card manufacturers that sell into the US on a regular basis that we're covering here, which is really, really crazy to think about. In terms of its cooling, just like a lot of the Gigabyte GPUs, it does use the thermal gel. They did have a little bit of a thermal gel problem with their GPUs where they used too much, they're saying initially, so it kind of leaked out. They're saying it's just a cosmetic thing. It's not conductive, it won't hurt anything. But it does use the thermal gel, and this uses a vapor chamber. So this is one of the most premium cards out there. If you're looking for a showpiece card, this is one of the ones I would put top of my list. Moving over to the Gigabyte RTX 5070 Ti Aero OC. Now this card, it only comes in an OC version, and the OC on it's pretty aggressive actually. 2588 megahertz, it's about 6% overclock. So 2 thumbs up there, kind of getting more towards the max OC version of it. And in terms of the card itself, this is a favorite to system builders who want to do an all white build, obviously, because the card is all white. The only RGB on this card is really on the top of it. It's the Aero logo itself that's right here. It's pretty understated, but you are able to control that using Gigabyte software on it. Backplate, kind of more, I would say, silver, basically. And then you have some Aero right here. Also has that recessed 12-volt high power connector, which I do like. That way we don't have to bend it too close to the card itself. The rest of the card, it's got a little bit of a sticker here with some blue, otherwise completely white/silver on it. And in terms of its overall size, this card also kind of one of the bigger cards out there. 340 millimeters in length, 3.5 slots in width. And again, this also is going to use the vapor chamber and the thermal gel for cooling, so it's kind of one of the better cooled cards out there. Let's move over to the Gigabyte RTX 5070 Ti Eagle, the Eagle OC, and the Eagle OC Ice, which you guessed it, is basically a white version of this same card too. I kind of like this one a little bit better than the Aero Gigabyte. Let's go through the specs though. So the OC versions, and that is the Ice is the only an OC version, and the Eagle OC, in terms of the clocks, pretty good overclock on them, 2542 megahertz. It's a 4% overclock. It's kind of close to the Aero. Now the cooling, not quite as good. This is just going to use a cold plate and then the thermal gel on it. Still absolutely fine, but getting away from that kind of more expensive vapor chamber is part of it. The RGB lighting on these, it's just a light bar right here on the top, so it is a little bit more basic possibly. Here it is on the white one as well. And then in terms of the rest of the kind of look and feel of the card, if we take a look, the back plate, for the black one, it's basically kind of a blackish gray to it. The rest of the card, kind of tasteful looking, I think. And then in terms of the white one, it's a little bit more of a silver than anything else. And it's got kind of a blue stamp with the eagle on the logo. Now, this is designed to be a small form factor card, and it's certified small form factor by NVIDIA's little program here. And it's 304 millimeters in length and 2.5 slots in width. So it's exactly the size that they deem is small form factor. Obviously check your case specs because sometimes your case is even smaller than that. Overall, 2 thumbs up. Remember, it also does have that power indicator on it as well, the LED power indicator. And I do, again, love the recessed version of the 12-volt high power connector. So you don't have to bend the cable immediately after it comes out of the connector. You get a little bit more run on it, which is a lot safer. Moving over to the Gigabyte RTX 5070 Ti Gaming and Gaming OC. And this is the one that we actually have, and we've used it in our 9700X live stream build for channel members. So we absolutely love this card. Gigabyte did send it over to us. I really like this card. Let's quickly go through the clocks though. So the clocks on this, pretty aggressive overclock, 6%, 2588 megahertz. So 2 thumbs up there. Obviously the non-OC version is just stock. Couple things I really like about this card. I like these kind of cut off corners. I like the cut off corners a lot. It just was smoother and easier to handle during the build process. Maybe that's a big deal for you. Maybe it's not. I also thought it was just kind of a nice little touch to it. And then in terms of the RGB, so each of the fans has an RGB ring light to it. And then there's an RGB light at the top, and you can actually slide this little slide thing here, and you can slide it so that it's not the Gigabyte logo that's lighting up. You can just be a light bar if you want. You just slide that to the side. Gigabyte logo will still be there, but it just won't be illuminated any longer. In terms of the back plate for the card, it's nice and black, recessed 12-volt high power connector, so 2 thumbs up there. And it does have that LED light for the power indicator, which I absolutely love. Same amount of connectors, 3 DisplayPort 2.1, 1 HDMI 2.1. Not much else to say about this card, except it is a pretty big card. It's not a small card. It is 340 millimeters in length, and it's 3.5 slots in width. So this is definitely not a small compact card, but I gotta tell you, especially with those kind of corners cut off, it was pretty easy to put in a normal size build. And then we've got the Gigabyte RTX 5070 Ti Windforce and Windforce OC, and both these cards are small form factor NVIDIA certified. So that means that they're gonna be 2.5 slots in width, and they're gonna be 304 millimeters in length. So I'll get that out of the way. Let's talk about the overclock. The overclock on the overclocked one is a mild overclock. It's 2497 megahertz. It's just 2%. So it's not a big overclock. These are going to be more MSRP focused cards. There's no RGB on these cards, by the way. They're completely matte black, except for the backplate, which does have a nice little white contrast to it. I absolutely love that. 2 thumbs up. It's got the recessed 12-volt high power cable. I like that as well. And you're going to get the white LED power indicator. The cooling on these, pretty basic, just a cold plate. They do use the thermal gel on them, so I like that. If you're looking for more of an MSRP focused card, this is a really nice one. And it's got the 3 DisplayPort 2.1 and 1 HDMI 2.1 as well. Again, not much else to say about it other than if you're looking for the more MSRP or small form factor card, this is one you might think about picking up. All right, let's jump into MSI RTX 5070 Ti GPUs. And we're going to start off with just an absolute mess. I don't understand the naming scheme here, but we're going to start off with the Gaming Trio, the Gaming Trio OC, the Gaming Trio Plus, the Gaming Trio Plus OC, and then the Gaming Trio White OC. Those are actually all the same exact card. I don't know why we have so many different names and so many different configurations for them. I have listed every single one down in the description. If you can tell me what the difference is between the Trio and the Trio Plus, I don't know. The only thing I can see is that one weighs 0.03 pounds more than the other one, which is not a significant difference to me. So tell me in the comments what the difference is. I'll put it in the spreadsheet. But let's jump into the Gaming Trio. These are great cards. In fact, I have the 4090 Gaming Trio right here sitting behind me. It's been a really, really good card for us. It's in our video editing PC. They're nice showpiece cards as well, but let's start off with the clocks. They're all gonna basically be the same. The overclocked models are gonna be 2572 megahertz, and that's about a 5% OC. So it's more of that kind of medium OC out there. They're all gonna have 3 DisplayPort out 2.1 and 1 HDMI 2.1. Now let's jump into the physical cards because these are more showy cards. So they're gonna have a number of RGB, and if you wanna know what the white one looks like, This is the white one. White one also looks super, super tasteful. The white that I can tell, again, only comes in an OC version. But you're gonna get RGB on the front of the card here. Maybe this is easier to see on the black card. You're gonna get it on the front of the card in this stripe that it's got. That stripe continues up to the top. Then you've got on the edge of the card here, you've got the MSI logo lights up. And then you've got the dragon on the back of it that also lights up ARGB. And that's also same on the white card, basically same exact features on the white card. In terms of the size of this card, this is not a small card. This is 338 millimeters in length, but only 2.5 slots in width. MSI has really gone to a design kind of theory of longer cards, but thinner cards. Very similar to what XFX does on the AMD Radeon side. I kind of like that approach. If you like the bigger, chunkier cards, obviously we've gone through some of those as well here. Now, in terms of the cooling on this, they don't mention anything other than a cold plate on it. So it's just a regular old-fashioned cold plate with thermal paste. So 2 thumbs up there. I'm absolutely fine with that. If you're looking for a great card, either white or black with a tasteful amount of RGB on it, these are ones to check out. Let's jump in the RTX 5070 Ti Vanguard SOC. This is MSI's flagship. There's also a limited edition of this card. Just comes with some additional goodies. The card's identical otherwise. Lots of RGB on this card, and also this is their most overclocked version of the card. So let's start there with the clocks. 2588 megahertz, a 6% overclock. So getting up towards max OC, not the fastest card out there, but still nothing to sneeze at. Let's talk about the card itself. It's a lot of RGB on this card. So you got this nice light bar here. You got on the edge of the card, you have an additional logo that lights up. And then if you look at the rest of the card, very similar to the Gaming Trio, it's got kind of the light that goes across it. However, this one's beveled underneath. They really like that. They really want to show that part of it off. I think the card looks super nice. It's nice, beefy card, by the way. Let's talk about the size of this card. It's 357 millimeters in length, 3.3 slots in width. So it's not quite as big as the Aorus Master, but it's a pretty big card. It's a nice big honking card. And especially if you wanted to try your hand at manual overclocking and really push clocks, this might be one of the ones that you're going to want to look at. In terms of the backplate on this, no RGB, which I was a little bit surprised at, just kind of stamped metal, which actually looks quite nice. It's gray with a little bit of black in here, some highlights with the dragon logo on it. In terms of the rest of the features, it's got 3 DisplayPort 2.1, 1 HDMI 2.1 on it. And then it's overall just a nice card. Now, the 12-volt high-power connector, not as recessed maybe as the Gigabyte cards, but still kind of recessed on it. If you're looking for a high-end card and you want like tons of RGB and you love the Dragon logo, check this one out. All right, let's jump into the absolutely most compact RTX 5070 Ti out there, which is the MSI Inspire 3X. Now, they say 3X, that means it's got 3 fans. Leads me to question whether or not we'll get a 2-fan one at some point, but this is very, very compact, and it almost seems like this is basically feature built for a small form factor. But let's start off. There's an OC and a non-OC version. Non-OC version obviously runs at stock, but the OC version runs essentially at stock as well. 2482 megahertz. It's only a 1% overclock. I wouldn't really get one or the other. I would just get the cheaper of the two if this is the card that you want out there. Again, this card does seem like it may be intended for small form factor builds, given its small size. So let's talk about that size. It is 288 millimeters in length, which is super tiny. And then 2.5 slots in width. Again, it's the smallest RTX 5070 Ti. I know it's not small by all GPUs out there, but for a GPU of this class, that is pretty small. In terms of the color here, I called it gold or bronze. You can make the decision yourself on what color you think this is. The backplate is kind of a same shade, or actually maybe a little bit more metallic. It has 3 DisplayPort 2.1B, 1 HDMI 2.1 on it. You get the stand and all the other features with it as well. Again, kind of more of a gold card out there. If you're looking for something probably more on the kind of mid-range in terms of price, but something that's great for small form factor cards, this is probably the most compact. All right, jumping over the MSI Shadow 3X and the Shadow 3X OC. The 3 just means it's got 3 fans to it. Again, leads me to believe maybe at some point we'll get a 2-fan one. This has got to be one of the most popular models of cards out there. The 4070 Ti, for instance, Super, the Shadow version was always selling out. And this version right here, when it has been in stock, has been one of the cheaper RTX 5070 Ti's out there, and that's often, I think, what MSI uses this for. It's basically very, very close to MSRP. Sometimes, especially hopefully in the near future, when we get enough supply, we'll be under MSRP, so 2 thumbs up there. Let's talk about the card. It's a very basic card. It is all matte black. I know some people absolutely love that. There's no RGB to it. So if you're like, I hate RGB, I want all matte black, this is probably a card that you want to check out. And look, I think this card looks really, really nice. It's got pretty good construction all around. It's got kind of a powder coated finish on the back plate as well. And then you just have some kind of white blocky lettering here in GeForce and MSI as well. In terms of the clock, it's very similar to the Inspire, where the OC version isn't really an OC. It's 2482 megahertz. So it's basically, again, a 1% overclock. 1% overclock, nothing really to write home about there. So I wouldn't really spend any extra money to get the OC version over the non-OC version. It does come with 3 DisplayPort, 2.1 out and 1 HDMI 2.1 out as well. It's a nice card in terms of the size. It's pretty compact. It is 303 millimeters in length, and it is 2.5 slots in width. So it's another card that NVIDIA quote unquote certifies for small form factor. Again, always check your case specs, make sure this is going to fit. Overall, I think this is one of the nicest looking cards out there if you do want something closer to MSRP, and it's one of the more popular models as well. All right, moving over to the MSI Ventus 3X. This is very much the Shadow, except it's silver instead of black, basically. These cards are almost identical, even down to the physical dimensions of them. But let's just go through the Ventus really quickly. Just like the Shadow card, the OC version of this card, really nothing to write home about. It's only a 1% overclock at 2482 megahertz. I will say, this has been one of their kind of best sellers. Again, typically find this card very close to MSRP. The Shadow often undersells it in terms of price. So again, you're getting almost the identical card. It just comes down to, do you want the more silvery one or do you want the matte black one? To me, this is a nice card, but again, it does usually sell for $50, $60 more. The cooling is pretty much identical to it. The design is very, very similar, except it has a little bit more like blocky lettering to it. Kind of similar kind of powder coating on the back of it that we saw on the Shadow as well. In terms of dimensions, the dimensions are exactly the same, 303 millimeters in length, 2.5 slots in width. So this is also good for small form factors if it will fit in your case. At least it's NVIDIA certified. 12 volt high power connector here, and you're getting the same kind of outputs you are on all the other MSI cards. 3 DisplayPort 2.1, 1 HDMI 2.1. Again, if you're more into the kind of silvery metallic card instead of the black card, then pick this one up. Let's jump over to PNY's RTX 5070 Ti. And their extremely confusing naming scheme. Now, they make pretty good cards, but gosh, they really need to go back to the drawing board on this naming. So there's basically 2 different models here. There is an RTX 5070 Ti triple fan, and then there is a triple fan plus. The triple fan plus is just a bigger card, basically. It's got a bigger heatsink to it. And then there are non-RGB versions, non-RGB overclocked versions, ARGB versions, and ARGB overclocked versions of each one of those cards. So there's 8 different cards right there. Just when you thought it couldn't get more confusing, the overclock on the ARGB ones is actually higher than the non-RGB ones. So I guess RGB does give you more FPS. It's just science, because if you take a look, either the plus or the non-plus card, as long as it's ARGB, will give you one of the fastest overclocks of any card out there. It's an 8% overclock, 2640 megahertz. Again, that's on the triple fan OC and the triple fan plus OC ARGB models for both ones. But if you just do the regular triple fan OC, which does not have ARGB, the overclock's only a 5%. I say only, that's still pretty good, 5%, 2572 megahertz. So I don't really understand how they decided to do that, but that's basically how it breaks down. Now the cards themselves, quite nice. They're nice and beefy. If you like RGB, if you're looking for something more showy, these cards got a lot of RGB on them. They've got this kind of infinity symbol around the fans that goes like this. I actually like that quite a bit. Now, they've had that for a while. You might remember the 30 series cards had that same kind of thing, only a little bit different configuration. The PNY logo on the top of the card lights up, and then on the back plate as well, there's a big ARGB kind of arrow on it. So if you like ARGB on your card, this is definitely one to check out. Now, in terms of the size of them, if you want to see the non-RGB one, it's just basically the same card. except it doesn't have any of the RGB stuff on it. It's just a matte black card basically. So if you don't like RGB, get this one instead. But if you want the Max OC, you have to get ARGB with it. You go figure that one out. I can't. So in terms of the size of these cards, they're not that big. 300 millimeters in length, 3 slots in width. I don't know why they went with 3 slots in width. Why not 2.5 slots? And that's for the triple fan. If you want the triple fan plus, it's 329 millimeters in length and 3 slots in width. Again, if I've gotten any of these specs wrong, let me know down in the comments, because I spent about 2 hours going over just these cards right here to figure out what in the heck was actually going on. There's no teardown reviews of them just yet. If I find some, I will definitely post them as well. They do look like pretty good cards. One other thing to note is when it says Epic X, the Epic X is just RGB. That's all it is. So again, they've got a non-RGB regular version, a non-RGB overclocked, an ARGB non-overclocked, and an ARGB overclocked of both these models, and the ARGB overclocked ones are the fastest ones. Let's jump over to Zotac RTX 5070 Ti's. And I will say, I know Zotac, some people still remember in the old days as maybe more of a bargain basement brand. I think they've come a long way. So if you haven't given their GPUs a look in a while, I would definitely do so now. One thing I really like is they have a safety light on their power indicator, similar to the Gigabyte one. I believe it goes red and green, however, to indicate, and it will actually prevent your GPU from powering on if the cable is not fully seated. So it goes one step above, just indicating whether or not the power is good. If the cable is not fully seated, it will not power up the GPU. So 2 thumbs up there from a safety perspective. Let's start off with their Amp Extreme Infinity and then their Amp Extreme Infinity Ultra. What's the difference between the two? Basically, one is more overclocked than the other. So the Amp Extreme Infinity has a 2% overclock. It's 2512 megahertz, and the Infinity Ultra is a 5% overclock at 2572 megahertz. Otherwise, the cards are absolutely identical. That I can tell, no difference in ARGB. It's just the overclock basically. So really, I guess maybe they didn't have a stock or something. I like the design of the card overall. It's got a light bar on top. The Zotac logo lights up as well. That's your ARGB. In terms of the rest of the card, no real ARGB on it. The backplate, pretty tasteful, more metal finish to it with a little bit of like the gold Zotac Eagle on it. In terms of its rear outputs, very similar to all the other cards, 3 DisplayPort 2.1B, 1 HDMI 2.1. It's actually got a relatively large vapor chamber to it, so that's really nice. So again, this is one of the more premium RTX 5070 Ti's out there. In terms of the specs and the size of the card, definitely a slightly larger card, 332 millimeters in length, 3.5 slots in width. So not quite as big as like the Aorus Master or anything, but it is definitely getting up there in terms of its size. So again, if you're looking for a nice looking card that's a little bit faster on the overclock side, maybe check this one out. Another great feature on the Zotac card is you can actually offload the ARGB from the card itself onto the motherboard and use your motherboard software to control it. It comes with a cable for it. So there's their white connector up there at the top. It's basically a standard 3-pin 5-volt ARGB cable will plug straight into your motherboard's header or into any kind of other device. You can even possibly daisy chain it. It means you don't have to use Zotac's ARGB software. You can use your motherboards instead. Let's jump into the Zotac RTX 5070 Ti Solid and Solid OC. There's also a Solid Core series. There's a Solid Core White, and then there's a Solid Core small form factor. Yes, it starts to hurt my brain when you keep reusing the same name over and over, Zotac. You're killing me here. The Solid and the Solid OC are the more kind of mid-range-ish cards in terms of the feature set. There's not that many differences, to be honest, between the two of them. In terms of the clocks, these cards are all very, very similar. The OC is basically a 1% OC. It's not a real OC. It's 2482 megahertz versus the 2452 megahertz. So I wouldn't spend any extra money to get the OC, so to speak. The one thing that the Solid has that the Solid Core doesn't is it has a little bit ARGB on the top here. And it still has that ARGB pass-through cable, and it does come with a cable as well, which I really like. So you can offload that ARGB control onto your motherboard. So that's really, really nice there. In terms of the card itself, it's mostly black. The backplate looks pretty tasteful, a little bit of gold to it. They've kind of weaved in the gold to it. The connectors on the back, again, 3 DisplayPort 2.1B, 1 HDMI 2.1 on it. it's still a little bit larger. It's 330 millimeters in length and 3.4 slots in width. So it's, yeah, it's definitely a bigger card, and it still uses a vapor chamber for the cooling, so pretty good cooling with it as well. So then we move down to the solid core. What's the difference between the solid and the solid core? You lose a couple features, basically. This is a little bit more basic card. So it still has ARGB on it on the card here in terms of the logo and the light up logo down here, but you can no longer offload it, no longer has the cable to offload it to your motherboard. Do we really have to segment that feature? But if you don't need it, if you don't really care about it, that's absolutely fine. And then in terms of the cooling, still got a vapor chamber to it. 2 thumbs up, still has a safety light, still has all the other goodies of it, but it is a smaller card. The clocks are the same. It's still a 1% overclock on it. Again, nothing that I would write home about for this, but the card is smaller. It's now a 304 millimeter card, and it's 2.75 slots in width. And there is a white version. The white version only comes in an overclock. I think the white version looks pretty nice, kind of in a white and gold. And then the backplate, I think, also looks pretty nice on both of these cards. So again, this is more of their like mid-range towards MSRP card. Then of course we've got the solid small form factor and small form factor OC cards. These are purpose-built essentially for small form factor, a little bit more stripped down on the features, including like RGB and stuff, but you usually don't want that in a small form factor build because it's usually in a completely enclosed case. So this is the thinnest RTX 5070 Ti out there. It's not the shortest, it is pretty short, but it's the thinnest. It's 2.1 slots in width, and it's 304 millimeters in overall length. So 2 thumbs up there if you're looking for super, super thin, because sometimes it's not the length of the card as much as it is the thickness of the card that's going to end up getting you in some of those small form factor builds. Same amount of outputs on it, 3 DisplayPort 2.1B, 1 HDMI 2.1, and then the clocks are basically the same. It's a 1% overclock. The only other difference here is there's no RGB, it's a white LED now. Again, you don't have to even worry about that in most small form factor builds. This card is essentially approaching very, very much the baseline MSRP. Remember, everything including that spreadsheet is linked down in the video description, so check that out and check out the links for current pricing and availability in your region. Of course, if you got value out of this video, please give it a like. This makes a huge difference to the channel, especially this guy right here who slept through the whole thing. And of course, subscribe for more cool PC content, and we'll catch you on the next one.